Go ahead and make one, and that's what I did. Thankfully now, years later, the book found an audience, but it didn't look like it was ever going to find an audience, and I just don't care because I have mental issues, and I just go along the way. But I knew the whole time, there was no end in sight, so I just wanted to put that image out there, no pun intended. I want to put that image out, that's the reality for most creator-owned books, that you can't live on it at all. I lived as a caricature artist all those years, well into my first year on Ultimate Spider-Man, because I wasn't sure how long I was going to get that job, right? And I remember very, very, very clearly winning an Eisner and having to leave San Diego early because I had a gig that night at a bat mitzvah where I was going to cut my wrist. It was so horrible. But that was the reality. But in my head, when I was growing up, I said, wow, you know, you have to win an Eisner. Can you imagine such a thing? I imagined a whole different life around it. That would be, but the reality of it was this other thing. So I just wanted to put that out. Now I'm down.
No, I mean, you're exactly right. And I had those exact same days on Battle Boat, and I had those exact same days on Tech Jacket, and all of the other forgotten gems that are all collected in Image Comics. that you know, obviously didn't make squat. It was a very hard road, and you know, having you help me out and get me at Marvel was part of the many things that led to me being able to breathe this rarefied air that is so delicious that we all get to enjoy together. But my argument,
like posada.
My argument is that I'm glad that it actually doesn't. Anyway, rarefied air is. I don't think it's as rare as you might say. I think there are many creators that aren't doing creator-owned work that could do creator-owned work, and there's definitely a cycle that's necessary in the life of a creator to work their way up to where they can get a hold of that sweet, rarefied air and turn that into a profitable creator-owned book, because I think a lot of people don't realize, and I think you'll admit this, Powers is a very profitable endeavor. And part of that is because we are creators who have gotten to the point where we can sell books, and I'm not blind to that. It's something I'm very aware of, and what I would say is that I was speaking to specific creators, and I even said it in the video. There's a cycle. You start out in creator-owned work, you work your way up, you get your name out there, and the problem that I see is that there are a lot of creators out there that stay on corporate books when they don't want to.
But, and this is that's one issue, element of your speech that a lot of creators have pointed out to you since, that is one cycle, not the only cycle.
No, I'm not saying it should be.
But in your initial thing, you said, this is what creators do. They get into Marvel, they build up, and you should either jettison or you're going to die.
Well, there are guys out there that just want to do Marvel and DC work and really just got to do that Green Arrow series, and that's fine. But I do not think you can argue that there are creators that are going to do Green Arrow for the rest of their life and stay viable creators.
Well, see, you're making generalizations that I actually don't agree with at all. First of all, there's tons of creators that have absolutely no interest in superheroes or mainstream or quote-unquote mainstream comics at all, and have published for decades, Los Brothers Hernandez and Adrian Tomine, and some of these guys in my hoity-toity Mr. Marvel had called them to try to get them to come over and draw an issue of Marvel Team Up, because I thought, how cool would that be? And they were like, hey, get the fuck out of here. They're not interested at all. Yeah. So I would, to not acknowledge the fact that there are many creators, some of whose shoulders we stand on, who don't adhere to this cycle that you've described, is almost ignoring.
I think for the sake of the argument, we can just assume I'm talking about mainstream comics.
But even in mainstream comics, there's examples that go all over the place. It's kind of one of the scary things, and one of the cool things about our little tiny bottom of the showbiz and rung. It's just like showbiz. There's no right or wrong way to break in. And for most normal jobs, if you do a certain thing and do it right, and you can build up the ladder of whatever success it is in that field. In our field, there's just like in any creative field, there's no rhyme or reason to why anyone's successful, why anyone gets. A lot of it has to do with luck. Some of it is being on the right book at the right time, when the temperature of the culture is at the right time. And we're both pretty good comic historians about why did Frank Miller work at that time? You know what I mean? Why he was the perfect voice for 1985 and that, you know, for Dark Knight. We think about it all the time. So the question really is why just because it worked for you this way, you feel that there's a certain cycle, doesn't mean that it has to work for everybody that way. Now my other argument is that I actually feel that there's a lot of people who are gigantic fans of these icon characters, like Green Arrow, right? You know who I want on Green Arrow? The guy who's dying to do Green Arrow. And let's say that's all he wants to do, he fucking loves Green Arrow. As a fan, that's who I want to be on Green Arrow. All right, if that's what he wants to do and he wants to make me happy, that makes me happy. And there's absolutely zero wrong with that for that person. No, it's just a hate of him. You know?
Yeah. As an individual case, there's nothing wrong with a guy who just wants to do Green Arrow, who's just going to be the best Green Arrow comic out there. That's going to be good for everybody. That's fine. He's going to be a happy person. My stance is talking to the guy who is doing Green Arrow because he needs that paycheck. And Green Arrow is selling because of him, because he has built himself up to a certain place where he can do Green Arrow. Because a lot of times there are characters where they won't let you do them because they're not big enough characters, and you got to get to that level where you're selling books based on your name, and then they'll go, you know what, if you want to do Green Arrow, you get to do Green Arrow now because you've proven yourself on all this other stuff. And then that guy gets to do Green Arrow, and then he's like, well, you know, I don't really like this anymore. But he stays on it. And he keeps doing stuff for the corporate house. And these people do exist because I've talked to them. I know who they are. I know.
Name names.
There would be too many names to mention. But
are they in the room?
Anyway,
you
can argue about independent comics and all kinds of different ways to be successful. And there certainly are, I'm not saying that there's only one course to take in your comic book career. I am just saying that if you're sitting there and you're unhappy, and a lot of people are unhappy, there are options out there. A lot of people are aware of it.
I don't think there, see that's, and Grant Morrison had said this, and I said it too. Who exactly were you referring to? Who among our peers, in our peer group, do you think is unaware of the creator-owned market?
No one is unaware of the creator-owned market, but people are unaware that you can make enough money to sustain yourself in the creator-owned market with books that sell a fraction of the books at a corporation.
But you can't, and this is where we get. This is where
you can.
Some can. We have peers.
Yeah.
Who have
is this rarefied arrogant?
No. We have peers who have attempted to, and for whatever reason, because it wasn't the right property, or it just wasn't the right look of it, whatever reason, completely disconnected to the audience that they had built up from their Marvel and DC.
And that's a mistake. That's a mistake. That's not the rule. There's no examples of that. There's more examples of that than the 4 people I can think of that you're thinking of who've done so well with your creator-owned work. I think there's more than 4 people that have done well with creator-owned work. Well, the level you're talking, it's like 5.
Name names.
What level am I talking about? Because the Warriors make a fantastic living. As an example, make a fantastic living. They did the Spider-Woman series with you. They didn't want to, they're doing Ultra. They're fine. They could do more Marvel work if they wanted, but they are obviously making enough money on their book to continue doing what they want to do. And that book is not in the top 100.
I obviously adore
I hate to name names, but yeah, they're good people. We both know them.
But I don't know what they do.
That is an example.
But I don't know what they do for a living outside of that. I'm talking.
They don't do anything for a living outside of that.
You know, they could prostitute themselves.
We can insinuate that they're.
I just insinuated they're giving a hand up to the airport.
There's an entire wealth of creator-owned people out there that are making a good living. Is what I'm saying.
But
and there are people in the upper levels of Marvel and DC that are making page rates far less than what they could be making on books that sold a fraction of what they're doing. And that is a fact, and that is a fact that a lot of them are not aware of, because I talk to them at conventions, and they're like, wow, I had no idea that Charlie Adlard is making that much on Walking Dead. That is completely unheard of. Yeah, Walking Dead. Walking Dead is not the most successful creator-owned book that has ever existed. Far from it.
But it rules!
It does.
My argument
game people.